and we're going to get after it here this morning. I want you to know right off the bat that today's lesson is going to be challenging. It's going to be a challenging lesson. It was challenging to write the lesson. It's going to be challenging to present the lesson, and I suspect that it'll be challenging to hear the lesson this morning. So I just want to make sure I set the appropriate expectations for you. If anybody wants to leave, now may be the time, right? But on the other hand, I will tell you, I think it's going to be absolutely worth it. I think it's going to be absolutely worth it should you take heart to the message that we have here this morning. You know, every Sunday we start out by looking at core values. That's how we start every Sunday. And the first one we put on the board is how Jesus always values people, right? Many years ago, I was given this bit of advice, and I have found this advice to be so very true. And it was that the advice was this. I was told that Sunday comes twice a week. And that does sound odd, but the meaning of that advice was this. It's that whenever you teach a class, you do something like this, it's like every time you turn around, it's Sunday. It's like it comes twice a week. So like today, I'll be done with this lesson and I'll go home and I'll be like, whew, got that one done. And next thing I know, it's going to be Friday at lunchtime and I'm going to be like, what are we teaching this week? Right? So whenever I decided that, just do standalone lessons, it was with noble intentions, but not having a full long-range curriculum has its challenges as well. So typically, what I have found is God gives me experiences in life that inform, hey, this is what you're learning, this is what you should share with others. Typically, that comes from having the nonsense that goes on in a household of 5 people with a couple of teenage girls. There's typically some level of learning happening, right? But when you take my wife away, when you take my daughters away, and even Jess was away half of this week, I found myself like, what am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to share this week? But it started with a conversation that I was having with a colleague of mine, and he was telling me about some of the challenges that he was facing. And I trust we can all recognize that. We've probably all dealt with some challenges, maybe some challenges this week. Okay, 2 of you admit to that. I need to take notes from you. We should change this around. But during that conversation, a little piece came to mind, and it comes from the Message paraphrase. Now, I don't know if any of you have read the Message paraphrase of the Bible. It's just written in a different language, and sometimes the way it's written has been very helpful to me. There's other times where I sort of get lost, but in this particular case, this paraphrase has become very, very helpful. If you have a digital Bible on your phone, I want to encourage you to open that up, change over to the Message, go to chapter 5 of the book of Matthew. We're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. And this verse comes from the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. Now, the Sermon on the Mount is considered to be really the launch of Jesus' public ministry. And it reads this way. It reads, when Jesus saw his ministry drawing huge crowds, he climbed a hillside. Those who were apprenticed to him, the committed, climbed with him. Arriving at a quiet place, he sat down and taught his climbing companions. And this is what he said. Now, this is what came to me to share with my colleague that I was talking with. He says, you're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there is more of God and his rule. And that was the encouragement I was meant to share with him that day. But what I liked about this paraphrase is that it really challenged the way that I had thought about Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount. And if you would have asked me before reading this, what was the Sermon on the Mount like, I would have told you this must have been like some type of stadium show, right? Like Jesus just had all these people around him. He gets up there, he teaches this really long message, and it's this wonderful thing. And it may have absolutely been that way, but this paraphrase just shows that it's a little more intimate. The committed were those that went with him. I would actually suggest this. It was probably just Jesus and his disciples, and he said, you know what? There's people starting to show up. We best have a team meeting. We best have a team meeting. So let's bring these folks together. And so as I was preparing and thinking about what is it that I'm supposed to share this week, I thought, well, maybe I should go to the Sermon on the Mount. Maybe like that little prompting this week was what we could look at. And so I opened my Bible up to the Sermon on the Mount, and I have this little takeaway lesson that talks about the core values of the Sermon on the Mount. And I thought, maybe this is what I am supposed to share with you this week. For those of you that have been with me a long time, you've probably heard me share the story about how it was going to a conference and having somebody come out and say, how many of you work for a company that has core values? And there were 500 of us in the room, and 500 hands went up. We all have core values. And then he said, how many of you know what those core values are? And 500 hands in that room came down. And that was very, very indicting to me. So whenever I got back, I had to look up my company's core values, and I had to start sharing those with my team. And what I found was that by sharing those values with my team, we became much more efficient, and we were able to solve problems so much more quickly. It was such an impactful experience to have. I've also shared with some of you about how when I joined the John Maxwell team, I was in this room of now 3,000 people, and he gives me a challenge, and he says, I'm going to teach you about our core values, and I'm going to tell you more about that before we're done today. But that was such an impactful thing for me that day as well. So I thought maybe, just maybe, there is something in these core values that could be impactful for all of us that we take from the Sermon on the Mount today. So maybe you'll even find that these values challenge you. You see, I think they will, because as I was going through it, I realized that they still challenge. They still challenge me. So our text is to get through chapters 6 and 7 of the book of Matthew. That's our challenge. Do I think we're going to do that today? I do not have that high expectation. I don't. This may be a two-parter. It may be a three-parter. It's not what I intend to do. I get it. But that may just, we're gonna try to do this the right way. All right. So Jess, if I didn't tell you, I need you to have a timer set for 10:35 so I don't go way long today. But in this first sermon recorded in the gospel, Matthew spotlights Jesus' emphasis on values. Those values. And Jesus knew that he had to make sure that the people that were following him knew his values. And that's what he unpacks here in these in these chapters. Now, for those of you who were in first service, Pastor John ended by giving the invitation to a church-wide study, right? And I hope you're all given that consideration to either host or to participate, whatever it is. I think you will be blessed by your participation in that. I will tell you this, I've had the opportunity to look at some of those materials. I haven't looked at all of them. I've looked at some of those materials. And there seems to be an emphasis in the materials on discipleship. Okay, that's what it is. So, as a follower, as a disciple of Christ, we should be learning and we should be doing the disciplines that Jesus taught and practiced. Right? That's really what it means to be a disciple. It's to do the disciplines that somebody would have you do. You've heard my little mini lessons on that before. But over the course of these two chapters in the Gospel of Matthew, we get a decent look at what should be included in these disciplines. So we're going to get started here. I have 10 in this list. And I think what you'll find is I think you'll find this pretty good list. I think as we go through it, you're going to say, hey, I like that, right? You may say these are good values, but you may also, if you're anything like me, find out that got a ways to go on that one. I got a ways to go. So to that end, should you experience any discomfort as we go through these values, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to look at that discomfort as motivation to consider upgrading your values. That's what I would encourage you to do. Because if we can adopt these values, we become more and more like Jesus. And what would that do to our community? What would that do to our workplaces? What would that be like? So let's start out. Let's go to Matthew chapter 6, verses. We're going to go verses 1 through 8. I don't know exactly how I'm going to put this stuff on the board. I want to try to keep them on the board, but we'll do 6, 1 through 8, and then what do I have? 16 to 18. This is going to be our first pass here. Jesus is teaching. He says, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, but to be honored by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." Jump ahead to verse 16. "When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." In these verses, we are taught the core value that motives matter. Motives matter. We want to do the right thing for the right reasons. Right? Let me ask you this. What motivated you this morning? How many of us were motivated by an alarm clock this morning? There you go. I did. I set the alarm clock this morning, right? You know, or did you have somebody come and beat on your door and say, "Hey, it's time to get up"? Parents who had to do that with their kids this morning. Yep. Motives matter. Now let me contrast that. It's the day you go on vacation. Do you need that alarm clock on vacation day? Isn't that interesting? Like we've all had the days where we need the alarm clock, have we not? Have we not? Okay, all right. Just making sure you're with me. Making sure you're with me, right? We've had the times when somebody has to come and knock on the door. Like what's your motivation? Your motives matter. Jesus tells us we need to do the right things for the right reasons. As we go and look at the second value, let me preface it this way. How many of us have messed something up? All right. Jess hasn't. He's still young. He'll figure it out, right? Well, we all figure it out, right? We all have. Some of us have messed up in extreme ways. The second value that Jesus teaches us gives us more clarity on our motives. And for this, we're going to look at verses 9 through 13. Right? Jesus is teaching the Lord's Prayer here. He says, "This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one." All right, this is going to be a tough one when it comes to values. Number two, pray God's agenda, not your own. I feel like I shared this story somewhat recently, but in my household at Christmas time, one of the traditions that has developed over the years is that the kids would get Lego sets. Remember, does that story sound familiar? So like it started when Jess was real little and I was like, this kid needs to have Legos. And I started buying him Legos and it said like for ages 8 to 14 and he was like 4 and Trace was convinced that he was just going to sit at the table and eat Legos and that's not what happened. They became the Christmas tradition. It has moved on to his sister. It's moved on to his other sister. And now part of our Christmas activities is everybody sitting at the dining room table putting together their Lego sets. Well, Jess had the idea this year. He's like, I think mom needs to be part of this. Now, my wife is not good at raising plants. She's good at killing plants. She's not good at raising plants. And so Jess found this Lego plant thing. I don't even know, some fancy flower. I don't know what it was. And he's like, I'm going to get this for mom. And so now the entertainment starts. And she's not here to defend herself. So, Jess, you have to keep me honest on this. But there was times that as she's trying to read the Lego instruction and she's and like her inner monologue is turned off. It's all just coming out, right? And she's like, well, how am I supposed to do that? And one of the early comments that she made in putting this Lego set together is she said, "That's not how I would do it." You haven't put Legos together in how many years, woman? Like, how do you expect, what's the thing? But isn't that true for all of us in life? Don't we go through things and we're like, God, this isn't how I would do it. You wouldn't have signed up for this. God says this is the path to go down. You say, that takes tremendous courage to pray for God's will, does it not? Yeah. Do we need to be reminded of that? I need to be reminded of that. I need to be reminded of that. Last season, I shared with you some of my challenges in coaching 5th and 6th grade basketball. I had a brief moment where I thought I should get these kids t-shirts. I should get them t-shirts because some of the teams we were playing against, they had fancy uniforms. They had their name on the back. We just had reversible jerseys that we used at practice, right? Like it wasn't fancy at all. But when you're dealing with fifth and sixth grade kids, there's still this huge level of selfishness in them. And I was thinking, I should get them a shirt, and on the back, I had this idea that it would be something that would look like this. It would say, "We over me." And the intent was that, and obviously this would be pretty, but it would be like a mirror image. And the idea is that the team is more important than the individual. That was one of the lessons that I wanted them to get. Right? The we over me. That's what I wanted. Because when you get to be fifth, sixth grade, there's some kids that like to shoot. They don't, if they're in the gym, they think they're in range. They aren't. Just as an aside. There's some kids that think they can dribble. They can't. Like it's a rough thing. But if I was to say that we need a t-shirt for this value, it's he over me. Like, that's not how I would do it. Jesus teaches us that we should align to God's will, not that God should be aligning to our will. How's that value stick with you? For me, that's a little uncomfortable. All right, number 3. We're going to look at chapter 6, verses 14 and 15. Jesus says, "For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins." How do you deal with people? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I spent a long time, and I still struggle with this. There's times where I get impatient. And for me, it wasn't so much about forgiving or not forgiving. It was more about looking forward to seeing people or like dreading seeing people. I have a limit for how much I can or how much I want just to be around people. That's something that I struggle with. And some of the most severe tests I've had with this actually deal with family. Some of the most severe. Isn't it, and maybe I'm just telling stories on myself, but isn't it amazing how I can have the least patience with the people who are closest to me? I can have harsh words for those folks who are close to me. And I hope you don't understand what I'm talking about, but I'm suspicious that you might. I'm suspicious that you might. I had been working a ton at the time, and I was getting very, very few days off. The way my schedule was set up at the time is I was working 13 out of 14 days. Every other Sunday was what I had off in my schedule. And we came to a November, and now it's Thanksgiving, and I have another day off. Oh, I was so looking forward to that. But at the time, as a young couple, Trace and I were trying to please a bunch of people in our family and make appearances at these different places. One of which is that we had to drive to the other side of Warren on Thanksgiving Day. Now, for me, most of the days that I went to work would involve about an hour drive to work and from work, right? So on my day off, it would make sense that I would want to drive further. Like, I mean, that holds, wouldn't it? Right? And we go, we're on the other side of Warren, and we're getting to the house, and we start to walk in the house, and I can hear, and I don't know, and with my wife's family, they're they look at family differently than I do. Like they know second cousins and removals and stuff like that. I just don't operate that way. I'm not that sophisticated. Even people who are not family to me, I'll refer to as brother or sister. Like I just try to keep you a little bit closer, maybe cousin. Like I just don't get too sophisticated with that. But somehow this was a cousin or aunt of a cousin, or there was something, but it required that we go to the other side of Warren on Thanksgiving Day. I'd been working a ton. I looked awful. And as we walked into the house, I can hear this relative of my wife talking about how, like, she had to get up early to get dinner done. And she was going on and on and on and on. And she was talking about how sick she is. Now, she's about 4 feet tall. She's about 4 feet tall. And she's carrying on. You can hear rooms away what was going on there. And I thought, this is how I'm spending my day off. And I come around the corner, and there she is, and she looks up at me, and she declares, "You look how I feel." I just wanted to go home. Like I thought to myself, I'm sure I do look how you feel. I decided that that was probably pretty accurate. That was probably pretty accurate. I wanted to leave. I wanted to say something harsh. In fact, I used that as reason that we should never ever go to Thanksgiving there again. But here's the core value. Number 3, your relationships will make or break you. Your relationships matter. You can lift people up or you can tear them down. People are going to fail. And some of us fail people more often than not, right? Question is, what do you do about it? How do you navigate that? And I would encourage you, build strong relationships. Jesus warns us about forgiveness in this. Like, how much of a forgiveness leash do you have for some people? Some of us, it's pretty short. Some of us actually look for people to screw up. Like, I mean, I'm not going to make eye contact with Michelle, but like, you know, I'm just picking on you, Michelle. But like, there's some folks, right? You know, there's some folks where it's like you're just waiting for them to screw up, right? You know, like relationships matter. So we need to navigate that by building strong relationships. And that doesn't happen by accident. Strong relationships happen on purpose. And something that helps us build these relationships is our perspective. So how am I doing on time, son? What time is it? Oh, okay. So we're going to carry over. There's no way we're getting through this. I'm turning this page. Maybe no, I broke it. There we go. All right. We're now going to look at chapter 6, verses 19 through 24. 6:19 through 24. Jesus says, "Do not stir," let me try this with his actual words. "Do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourself treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Jesus tells us core value number 4 is to prioritize eternal things. Prioritize eternal things, not temporary things. How many of you have fallen prey to the tyranny of the urgent? Right? How easy is it to become distracted by some urgent, nonsensical thing? How many times do we get worked up about something that will not matter 5 years from now, or will not matter 5 months from now, or will not matter 5 days from now, or will not even matter 5 minutes from now? How often does that happen, right? When you get together with other people, we're talking about relationships, what do you talk with other people about? Many people like to talk about sports and weather and politics. Are those going to matter 5 years, 5 months, 5 days, or 5 minutes from now? These are all things that will be quickly forgotten. And truthfully, they're things that you can do very little about. Now, I get some of you are real sports nuts, and you probably have lucky socks or underwear that determine whether or not your team wins or doesn't win. Some of us have been there. Like, I get it, right? So some of you are waiting to break out a terrible towel because you know if you swirl the terrible towel in your living room during the season, somehow that's going to get the Steelers to play better. We've fallen for that, haven't we? Jesus tells us to value eternal things. He then goes on to tell us, we're going to do 6:25 through 31, and then 34 through, is it 36? No, just 34. He says, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. How many of you worry about your lawn? Any? Any of you really proud of your lawn? All right. Anybody jealous of a neighbor's lawn? I really thought this would go over better. These were not good examples, apparently. I expect some of you are. I will tell you, when I was young, my My dad would complain about my neighbor. He'd be like, ah, all he does is mow his yard. Doesn't he have anything better to do than to mow his yard? And now that my dad is old, you know what he does? He mows his yard. And what does he complain about? My yard not being exactly, exactly. That's what gets you know. That's that. You know, every spring, every spring in my yard, there are these little mounds of dirt. Right? What's that? My understanding is that that comes from moles who are burrowing around under. They're looking for whatever, and they do this, and they push up this really good dirt, right? And they're scattered. They're just sprinkled all over my yard. I'm curious if any of you know someone who likes or is quick to take a molehill and turn it into a mountain. Anyone know something like that? The value that we have here, number 5. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat it. One of my mentors lives out in California. In California, they do weird things. They do weird things. My mentor tells me of a time that his wife said, we're going to go to a conference this weekend. He said, okay. They go to the conference. They check in. They sit in this. Get sent into this room, and they're told to sit down. And now, my mentor is very much a type A personality. He's go, 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 right? You know, and the way he tells this story is that when he got to the conference and went in the room and he sat down, he's like, okay, what are we going to do? And there was an instructor in the front of the room. Now, the instructor was dressed rather bizarrely. I don't remember how he described it, but just take my word for it. It was a bit odd. It was a bit odd. And the way he was dressed did not really inspire confidence in my mentor. He was like, So the instructor was sitting on the floor up front, as in meditation or in prayer. And after waiting some amount of time, now I'm guessing, knowing my mentor, I'm guessing this was a matter of seconds. It wasn't a matter of minutes, but he's like, hey, what do we do? When are we starting? And the instructor just said, it doesn't matter. And he went back and he sat down, and a few minutes later, he's like, well, when are we going to get started? It doesn't matter. And apparently, they sat there the whole weekend, training themselves that the things that we get distracted about, when's the next break? When is he going to be done? Doesn't matter. And I thought, so many of those things would be such an important lesson for us. Why didn't it matter? Because all the questions that he was asking were small stuff. The things to not get too worked up about. You know, I had a couple of daughters that were involved in the marching band, and marching band does different fundraisers, which apparently the parents are responsible for, not the actual kids in the band. And Tracy's like, oh, we got to do a sub order. Every month it's a sub order. And then we got to get the sub order in, and we got to pick it up, and we got to get it delivered. And I'm like, what on earth is this misery about? And she's like, well, we get $1 for each sub. And, you know, I said, for the number of subs that we should just give $20 a month for whatever, because there's more than $20 in headache that is being generated by this. And then, you know, you go through all of this, and then your kids quit band along the way, and it's like, what's the point? It doesn't matter. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff. It is very possible to ruin things by turning molehills into mountains. So, what should we make a big deal? What's a big deal for you today? Is it lunch? Is it an afternoon nap? Maybe you're like me and you do need to get the yard taken care of this afternoon, right? There's some attention or maybe you're remembering right now that while your wife left on Wednesday, she did leave you with instructions to take care of some flowers. Maybe. But let's remember Jesus' last words. This is the last one I'm going to give you for today. Chapter 6, verses 32 and 33. For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. The sixth core value I will give you from the Sermon on the Mount is seek God's kingdom first. Seek it first, right? What if each day started by seeking God's kingdom for you personally? What if that's how, and what if it wasn't just seeking the kingdom, but it was learning about God's kingdom, and it was doing the actions that create transformation in you. There's a lot of folks that open their Bible up in the morning. There's a lot of folks that don't. There's a lot of folks that open up and they read the words and then they go about and they do everything the same. So I'd ask you this: what is something that you're doing differently today from what you were doing 6 months ago? And that can be a hard question. It's a hard question for me, right? The good news of Jesus is that you can change. The great news of Jesus is that you will change. You will. It's where you start with your relationship with Jesus is not where you end, right? So the question is, how are you changing? How are you moving away from sinfulness? Now, I started off and I mentioned that when I joined the John Maxwell team, I was at this conference and I was in a room with about 3,000 just absolutely wonderful people. I have never been in another room like this. It was such a different environment. And when I heard that he was going to be teaching on the core values of the group, I was so excited. But then I was warned. He said, if these aren't your core values, I don't want you here. Oh, wow. He said, whatever it is that you paid to get here, go tell them at the information center that you don't match this, and we're going to give you all your money back and send you home. And as he started to go through the values, I realized, oh dear, these are really good values, but they're not my values. And I'm going to tell you, if somebody would have gotten up and walked out, I may have followed them. But in that room of 3,000 people, nobody got up. And I'm going to tell you that at the Sermon on the Mount, in my mind, I sort of play it out the same way. That there's the committed, there's the group that's nearby, and Jesus starts saying, hey, these are the things that are going to be important to us. And I don't know if they thought about it. I don't know what fishermen think about it. I don't know what tax collectors think about it. But I wonder if as they went through that, some of them thought, I'm a little uncomfortable. These aren't quite my values, but they're really good values. Maybe I should adopt those values myself. I suspect that as we look at these values, what are your motives? Could your motives be upgraded? How about God's agenda over your agenda? That fits. What about your relationships? Are you building relationships or are you breaking relationships? Where are you at? You get worked up about temporary things. Where are you at? Is it the small stuff that just sets you off? And are you prioritizing seeking God's kingdom and the transformation that comes through it? This is where we're going to stop today. I had hoped to get maybe a little bit further, but that's where we are. Um, I want to encourage you that if there's some part of this that's a little bit uncomfortable, I think that makes you normal today. I think it makes you normal. But I want to also encourage you to lean into it. I want to encourage you to lean into the transformation that can come from adopting these values.